Welcome to the Scale Model World podcast with your co-host, David Howell of Tyrell Models and Wayne Green of World of Wayne. Hi, Wayne.
Hello, everybody. How are you? The Scale Model World podcast.
Well, again, this podcast is really a series for all model makers. It's a series where you build partworks, plastic kits, and everything in between. It's really a podcast for all model makers. And of course, don't forget to get in touch. I do say this every episode, and very few of you do. But if you have a burning question or you'd like to get in touch with us, please do. There's lots of email addresses all over our websites and stores, so please do come back to us if you have any queries or any questions, and we will endeavour to respond to those in a future episode. Now, quite a bit to get through, I think, for this one, because obviously we're recording this after Scale Model World at Telford, which we were both at. I must say, for me, it was kind of bonkers, really. It's the usual craziness, which is Scale Model World. But I thoroughly enjoyed every single second. But of course, for you, Wayne, you were there for a very short time, and you did try to cram it as much as you could with a couple of special guests.
I certainly did. Obviously, Phil Siegel from Spruverse and Lou Dalmaso, you're going to hear later on. They came over from the US to experience Telford, and Telford lived up to its reputation. Walking in there, I mean, when we got there between 11 and 12, so the queues had gone, so we could walk straight in. But you could see the carnage that was there beforehand, and then just seeing that initial hall, because I thought you walk into hall 1, but you don't. You walk into hall 3, and then you've got 2 because there's 3 halls. And even hall 3 was absolutely rammed. Yeah. Now, we wanted to offload our stuff to a guy called Keith, who runs Cosmic Scale Models. So we're not carrying coats and bags around.
Sure.
It took us about an hour to get to him, because not only were we just trying to look and push through the crowds, but obviously people are saying hello, and we were just talking to everybody. And at the end of the day, we can only stay till about 3 o'clock. And I spent more time meeting people, looking at models and chatting to people than actually looking around the venue. So it's definitely a 2-day thing.
Yeah, I think that's right. And I got the distinct impression. It was also because it's the 60th anniversary. This is the 60th time they've done this. I think that was an additional draw. IPMS hasn't obviously released the numbers yet for how many people actually attended, but it's well upon, I think, on the previous year. Because I mean, obviously I was in there early as one of the dealers, but someone said the queue was snaking all the way back to the car parks, which is just crazy. And that was on the Saturday, because that tends to be the busiest day. But the halls were absolutely heaving, and they really were. And also, of course, I think a lot of the overseas traders were back this year.
Yeah, they were.
At least a few more than we had previously, which is really good to see that they've come back to support the show. But of course, Telford was part of your trek around the UK, which we've been been privy to on your channel. So Telford was just literally the kickoff, really, for quite an interesting trek around to London for Comic-Con, and I think you also went to the Film and TV museum, and you even had time to stop off at Stonehenge.
Yeah, well, that's the first thing we did. I picked up Lou and Phil from the airport, and obviously I wanted to keep them awake.
Yeah,
and Stonehenge is only like an hour 15 minutes from Heathrow, so
Absolutely.
we went straight to Stonehenge, which was crazy. And it was solid rain until we got to Amesbury. Yeah. And it was just blue skies. I've never been to Stonehenge when there's been blue skies. So I got loads of pictures, and I did feel like I was in a Windows screensaver. but then from Stonehenge, we went back to London, and we actually visited the model shop Hannant's, which is by the RAF Hendon Museum.
Yes,
so very primarily military models, which makes sense being next to an RAF museum.
Absolutely.
And then from Hannant's, we drove to Covent Garden, where I had to park because there was no trains running the next day because of they had the London marches on. And I think they were doing signal works on 5 different lines. Yeah. So parking in Covent Garden and driving in London, which was my first time, was pretty stressful.
Oh, right. Yeah, it's very hairy. You picked the right weekend. All those demonstrations, etc.
We left from 7 o'clock in the morning, so we didn't get to see any of it. So we travelled straight from Covent Garden to Rugby. where we stayed at a service station, and I was telling you earlier that Phil and Lou had never experienced a British service station, which they thought was such a novelty. It's like a shopping mall on the road. And then from Rugby, obviously, we got to Telford. We got to Telford just after 11, and it was so busy that we had to park in the Asda, which was a good, I don't know, I'd say a quarter to half a mile away.
It's a good quarter of a mile. Yeah. Easy.
But
easily.
Yeah, it was rammed. It was rammed.
Yes, I think if anyone listening to this hasn't been, then you really must put it on your calendar. It really is the mecca for scale modelling. But interestingly, of course, it's not just plastic kits. Our friends at Agora were there. Had a very interesting stand.
Well, that was part of the reason why I didn't get anything done in the first hour, because while I was making my way to a hall 3, Agora Models was in hall 2, and I went straight to their stand to say hello. And of course, once again, my eyes just went straight to that Apache helicopter, and I'm like, it's the Longbow, isn't it? And I'm wow, indeed. Where did that come from?
Well, James did hint at that. I asked him, well, has the new thing got 4 wheels? He said, no, it hasn't. So I was racking my brain. What hasn't got 4 wheels? And I must admit, helicopters never entered my mind.
No, it was impressive though. Did you see it? Yeah,
amazing, absolutely amazing. It was great to talk to them all, and also the feedback they were getting. I think maybe they were a little bit apprehensive. What kind of reaction were we going to get? But actually, in the end, it was fantastic. They got very positive reaction to everyone in that hall, because it's a kit. It is still model making in whatever definition you want to use, which is really gratifying. I think it gives people an option to build something different, and it's there. And of course, the amount of different kinds of kits they put on show was amazing. I think they pretty much bought everything. Which
it's a shame they didn't have the Optimus Prime there, because Lou wanted to see the Optimus Prime. But I did ask Liam about the release date for that. I think that's going to be later next year, probably in the late summer, something like that. That's coming out.
Now you're also at Airfix's visitor centre, which they opened. Which I have seen a video, and that does look a very nice day out. I must admit, it's certainly on my list.
I obviously we after Telford we came back. We went to London. I had to drive back to Corby, and I thought, you know what, I'm not driving anymore. So I didn't realise that I live in Corby. Corby is actually on the St Pancras line, and Margate's on the St Pancras line. So all I had to do was get off at St Pancras, change platforms, and go to Margate. So it's a lovely trip. It's only an hour and a half from St Pancras. Excellent. And then the Wonderworks, which is the Hornby Hobby Centre, that's about a 6-minute cab ride away. Wow. So it's not far at all. I think it's about 3 or 4 miles. But I met Oliver Rayburn. He likes to be called Ollie Rayburn. He's new to the company. He's came from Paper Chase, but he did impress on us the vision that he's got for Hornby Hobbies. And I did say to him, I used to work in retail and PC World, and I'm wondering, you've got all these different brands. Would you want to see these brands going under one umbrella, like Hornby Hobbies Scalextric, Hornby Hobbies Airfix, Hornby? But no, he's got the complete opposite. He wants to branch these out into their own separate entities and keep them that way. So Scalextrics will have their own like hierarchy, and people Airfix, they'll have their own hierarchy, and promote the brands as single entities, which I thought was brilliant. But in Wonderworks, they do amalgamate everything together, not just in the shop, but in the sort of museum exhibition that they've got as well. Very cool. Brilliant, because not only is there interactive things to do in that museum, but there are displays showing you exactly how models are made, right from the blueprints to the prototypes to the end model. And they do that for Corgi, Scalextrics, Airfix, every single brand, which is absolutely brilliant. And they did have the original Great Escape Triumph motorcycle there. That's only on loan, so I only think that's going to be there for a couple of months from the Leicestershire Triumph Museum. They had the original No Time to Die Triumph that Daniel Craig rode in the film. That was there as well. But that whole experience, I mean, I was there for a good couple of hours looking around. It's only £5 for adults, £2.50 for kids. Which I'm like, God, if you're a Margate, you do need to pay that a pilgrimage, I think.
Absolutely, yes. I do like the idea that I guess the investment and the vision for each brand will be self-contained. I do like that. I think it will give, I guess, each sort of avenue for them. I guess their own path, because it is different. The Hornby guys are not the same as the Scalextric guys. They aren't. It's a very different kind of marketplace, even though there may be some crossover there. And I'm sure it is. I'm sure there are people out there they are absolutely interested in trains. They have Scalextric kits. They build plastic models, and they collect Corgi die cards. I'm sure there's plenty of those people. But if one thing is just your passion, I think that's great that they're going to make the investment.
Yeah, definitely. But I loved it. I said it was something
Yeah.
that I've always wanted to go down there just to actually meet the folks there, because I do see them on press days and stuff. But this one was just a chance to have a look around this. It's only just been completed, but there were people there because it was just a press day for a couple of hours on the Tuesday morning waiting to go in. So and this was chucking it down the rain. There was another Storm Debbie or something coming in, but it was the ideal thing to actually do while I was in Margate, sort of thing. So
absolutely, it is. It's absolutely on my list of things to do. Now, I was looking at what sort of happened in the sort of plastic model world, and there's a couple of interesting things actually. I mean, I do a wide range of different kinds of plastic kits, particularly a lot of armor as well, and the thing that stood out for me, Meng, I seem to have this sort of tiger tank obsession. You get sort of, they come along like buzzies. You get sort of 2 or 3 instantly. So that's a very interesting thing for me. But interestingly enough, they are also doing an F1 kit, the 1988 McLaren in 1/12.
Yeah.
But the interesting thing is, I didn't know these existed until this morning. It's pre-painted.
Oh wow.
Right, so it's a plastic kit, but the paint finish is complete. All the decals are on. Wow. So it is very much like a partwork, but you don't assemble it with a screwdriver. You got to still get out your craft knife and your your extra thin and all the rest of it, but it's pre-painted. Wow. So if painting is not your forte, you still want to build an F1 car, maybe you've had some experience with the partwork, these kind of kits could be kind of up your street. I've had a look at the pre-release images, and they do look amazing.
Wow!
It's a very interesting, I guess, amalgamation of two things there. Because initially I thought, it's like a partwork, but it's a plastic kit, which is very interesting. So I'm going to be very keen to get hold of one of those and just see what it feels like.
Where did you see that?
I look at all the news that's coming out, and Meng release all this stuff. There's stuff on the website now. But I didn't know they existed. Apparently, there's a few of these. I think they're called pre-coloured kits.
Wow!
But the paint finish is immaculate. It really is. But it's still plastic. It's still a plastic kit.
I think the only one I've ever had like that was I did the Pegasus Hobbies War Machine from War of the Worlds, and that was the one that was already bronzed. But you didn't have to paint that; everything was coloured for you to just piece.
Well, I suppose it comes off the Gundam world, because a lot of that is all pre-coloured. It snaps together, and it's finished. Obviously, some of the Japanese guys go bonkers with the paint finishes and the decals, but you don't have to. You can still get a very, very good model, but it's all pre-coloured. So I think that's kind of where it comes from. But I've never seen that. I think they do with bikes and more sort of car kits, but I've never seen a 1/12.
Wow.
Never built a 1/12, so that might be an interesting way to get into that. Do a 1/12, but do one of these sort of pre-coloured and see what it feels like. That you don't have to paint it. I don't have to get my airbrush out, which either I'll find liberating or I'll be a bit. I really want to paint that. And you still do that, of course. You can still paint the thing if you feel the paint finish is not for you. But if painting isn't your forte, then these kits could be very, very, very interesting.
Definitely.
Now, we've come to the sort of the point where I usually come to any questions that people have sent in. I say at the beginning, I said, do send questions? And as luck would have it, someone has. It's off the back of the last episode's interview with James over at Agora. We've had a couple of questions from Rick Gregory. The first question he asked is basically about licensing. How difficult was it to get licenses? Why is the UK, for instance, allowed to build a US car, but the US car maybe is not available for us, and so on? I guess territories, I think, that we're still talking about. Well, I sent a few questions off to James, and for the licensing, Agora, I guess, a little bit maybe unique. What they tend to do, he says, is look at the whole thing on a sort of global level. I think they look at the model they'd like to bring to marketplace, and if they can't do it as a global license, maybe they wouldn't do it, because they want to offer it to everyone, because that's kind of part of the Agora promise, isn't it? That wherever you are, you can build this thing. There's no issue there. So I think to answer that, Rick, it's really a case of I guess how the company approaches the licensing and what they want to do with that. and obviously which territories they want to attack. But for Agora, it's a case of, well, the entire world. We want to be everywhere,
Yeah.
which is fantastic, because you've often had that on your channel a great deal. People saying, well, why can't I get that car in my country? And why can't I buy this part work in my territory? I'd really like to build that, and I can't, which is a pain. I could import it with some of these companies that help us do that, but of course that increases the cost in some cases quite hugely to get hold of these kits. So I think for I guess the response, Rick, is really that it's kind of up to the companies to get the best licenses they possibly can.
Mm-hmm.
Now, Rick also asks a very interesting one, actually. He says, why is it that we have to remove or assemble a part? For example, we attach a wheel, but later on in the build, we have to remove it a couple of times before we put something else onto the car. James says, well, we do try to minimize this, but there also are some reasons for this. The first one is that parts tend to be safer if they are added and the construction rather than stored separately. So it's better to put it on the car so we don't lose them.
Tell me about it.
Absolutely. I mean, how many times I put something down and I go, where's that gone? Where's that spring? Where? I'm sure I put that spring on my bench there. Where has that spring gone? How many times I've done that? I've lost track. Because, well, plastic modelers, you ping stuff off sprues and it's gone. Where's that gone? I'm hunting around under my desk daily looking for parts. So I think that's a very good point, that we attach this stuff just so we don't lose it. He also says by adding items like wheels, the modeler gets a better feel for the progress and how the model's going to look, which I think is a very good point, because often maybe if you just left it as a chassis, it'd be a chassis for months, wouldn't it? And you don't feel you're progressing. And I think that's a very good point. And also, sometimes it's a response to customer feedback. Apparently, the better way of constructing the kit is to remove a part that's easier than trying to remove it later on. They've sort of thought that through, which I think is I guess makes the whole process for us model makers really I guess a better experience, because we do not want to be pulling our hair out if we had any. But there you go. Rick also asks, why do we pre-assemble parts not until later on, or do we get near to the build, such as pack one, we assemble the grille or a hood or maybe a wheel, and we don't need those until months later. What is pack one, the start of something, when really for a car it could be really that part is much later on. Now, James makes the interesting point that he says overall we do follow the construction sequence of the real car. Interestingly enough, that's the chassis, the engine first, and the interior cabin, and finally the bodywork. However, we also need to make the build as enjoyable as possible. Again, that's that experience of building these things. We separate the parts to be more interesting. For example, we do not give all four wheels in the same pack, but we spread them out. So it may be a little less interesting to have pack four with just four wheels in it, which is a fair point.
I was thinking, can you imagine four wheels of the DB5 in one pack? You'll be there all day doing those spokes.
Well, again, it's that experience. I think that's a very good point. I think the feedback, maybe that's exactly the kind of feedback they got, was that we don't want to do this because it's soul destroying to do four in a row. I mean, you kind of said that a little bit with arms and legs. Oh, we've got to do another arm. Or the X-wing, we've got to do four wings. So exactly the same thing 4 times. And that's why it's kind of spread out. So you don't have to do that sort of four times. Because they believe it's sort of important to give some identifiability, so you can identify the body parts like a hood, like a grille or a door in the first pack. Models can see the exact paint colours and finish straight away, but also appreciate the size of the model, which I think is also interesting. And the last question from Rick is, will they ever discontinue a build? We've had conversations about this a lot. Companies come and go. But of course, for Agora, that's absolutely built into their, I guess, into their mantra that if we go to build a car, it's absolutely going to be completed. That kind of thing, I think, is. Maybe something about anxiety is still in the marketplace. I think that's true. But I think with companies like like Agora and others, I think they've kind of learned their lesson that if we're going to do this, we are absolutely going to make the commitment to complete the model, because no one wants a half finished model.
No, definitely.
That's
It's all part of their Agora promise. That's what they promise on that. So I think another reading into what Rick's asked a question there. I'm wondering if he means that have you got a model which eventually people won't be able to get anymore? So the people that are subscribed will get the end model, but it will then become moratorium and it won't go. I think I've asked James this quite a while ago, and he said, for example, like the Cobra, that's always going to be there, but when it's not there, and it's all that, don't be surprised if it comes back, but this time it's a red one rather than a blue one, or something like that. So, but you're absolutely right. The Agora promise, they will make sure it's completed throughout.
Yes, because he also mentions things like limited editions, which absolutely, when they're gone, because it's a limited edition. So absolutely. So if you want one of those, then well, you're gonna be very quick because they do tend to sell out very, very quickly with the special editions or the limited edition ones. But I think ongoing builds, I think things like Super Snake, etc. That's obviously we don't know, but I would imagine that's part of a catalogue which will be evergreen, I guess, as we go forward, and probably eventually will become full kits. I think that's kind of where the market's moving to as well. I think that kind of thing.
If you are looking to take the detail and accuracy of your models to the next level, Mike Lane Mods has a range of mods and accessories to choose from. Mike is a builder himself. Subscribing to the original Eagle Moss build of the DeLorean, Mike could instantly see where improvements could be made. As other builders started to ask Mike to make the mods for their models, Mike Lane's Mods was born. Mike's creativity, attention to detail and enthusiasm for big scale modelling means each mod is carefully researched and then produced by hand so you can be sure that each mod is perfect. Created with a range of high quality materials, Mike's mods often replace or add essential details to each model he supports across his growing range. Whether you want screen accurate carpets for your DeLorean, a motorised roof box for the Ecto-1 or a fully working electronic dashboard for your K2000 kit, Mike has a mod for your model. Find out how you can enhance your models with Mike's latest mods by visiting MikeLaneMods.com.
Well, now we've come to the time for our very special guest. Now, many of you may have already met him and certainly know him as a sort of model making extraordinaire. And that person is none other than Lou Dalmaso, who you may know as Aztek Dummy. Well, welcome, Lou.
Hi, Lou.
Hello. I'm waving, realizing this is a podcast. Waving does nothing.
If you're wondering why, we're actually recording this obviously a few days or weeks ago, and we're recording the video and the audio. We're actually sat here looking at each other, but obviously you guys can only hear us. So basically, Lou's waving at an empty screen, which is quite funny in itself. But there you go. So Lou, again, thanks for joining us today on the podcast. We wanted to sort of get you on because, well, you're somewhat of a celebrity, I think, in the sort of in the model making world. I think in the environment we all sort of live in. A couple of things to kick off, really, I suppose, is I guess where it all came from. Are you just like Wayne and I? You did this when you were younger. Did you come back to the hobby? Have you continued it all the way through your sort of adulthood? How did you, I guess, arrive at the kind of model making you do at the moment? Is it a journey, or did you come back to it after a break?
Oh, I took a big gap for a while. I built models in the 60s. I'm one of those old folks. I was back in the day when we didn't get really good models, but I built models through the 60s and 70s and early 80s, and then went to art school, came back, got a job, grew up, got a government job, that kind of stuff. And then it was really around 2003, 2004 when I came back into it big time. I built the odd model here and there in the meantime, but it was like the 1-2 punch of the 350 scale NX01, and then right after that, the 350 scale refit. When those two models came out so close together, it's like, this is a good time to get back into modeling. So that's when I jumped back in, so to speak.
Did you originally start with your sci-fi fantasy movie sort of genre, or did you have kit models which were like, your aircraft, your military, or has it always been themed?
It's always been fantasy models. It's always been, now I'll build a car if it's Chitty Chitty Bang Bang, or I'll build a car if it's the Batmobile, but I'm not going to build a 56 Chevy. Where I grew up, I could see 56 Chevys. I go down the street, there's one there. Or not necessarily every military craft, but if there was a real thing, like I could go see it. I couldn't see the Starship Enterprise. So I wanted to have, a Starship Enterprise or a Batmobile or you name it. Back then, it wasn't so much the figure kits, although I did have the full set of the Adair Planet of the Apes kits.
Yeah.
But it was generally fantastical things. Not so much the Frankenstein Dracula monsters, but more the fantasy robots and spaceships.
So do you find you've got more comfort doing the figurines or the spaceships?
I used to say spaceships. Because for the longest time I had, the devil of a time doing flesh tones and making anything look real that was supposed to be real. I'll paint you a creature from the Black Lagoon, but I can't get, Barbarella to look like Barbarella.
Yeah, sure.
Things like that. But, also back then, really good figure kits weren't that easy to find. You could find a Godzilla kit. You could find, like I said, a creature from Black Lagoon, but they didn't have. This was pre any experience with like resin kits. This was what Aurora or Monogram was putting on the shelf. And it wasn't until I started going to model shows that I even found out about resin kits.
So these days, of course, it's kind of kiddie in a sweet shop. There's so much to sort of choose from. Even if you just look at the sort of fantasy and sci-fi genre on its own, that seems to have exploded. Yeah, really. I guess in Star Wars, I guess since the 70s, that you kind of trace it back to that, and then it just exploded, and it's continued as a genre.
Well, I think it's generational. I think it's the people that didn't get to find those kits back then are now in control of making the kits.
Yeah.
So now they're making the kits they could never find when they were kids. It's like you can get a darn good X-Wing kit these days. Back then, the original NPC X-Wing kit was a bit dodgy at best.
Remember? Yeah.
Fit, whatever. But now it's like, well, it's not just the models, but it's the toys. When I was a kid, I wanted a good phaser and a communicator. Could never find a good Star Trek communicator. But now you can get toy communicators that are better than the actual props ever were, as far as the look and the quality and the things they do and all of that. I think it's just generational in the fact that the people who are making decisions as to what toys get made are the ones that are our age that wanted those toys.
That came over with James, absolutely, didn't it? From Agora. I mean, he's a fan. He's not a businessman who went into modeling as a business. It was the other way around. It was a case of I'm the model maker. I want to see Super Snake as a kit, and now I have the opportunity to make that as a kit, and I think other people will think it's a great kit as well. So it's an interesting way that the people in charge, with I guess the people that are putting out the best kinds of kits, are also fans. I think you can tell if they aren't. Absolutely.
Yes. I will give you an example on the modeling side. Is 2001. Yeah. There are so many good 2001 models now. Who in their right mind would say this is a great business decision to put out a model from a 60-year-old plus movie that of a ship that has 2 minutes of screen time.
Indeed.
And it's forgotten.
Yep.
But there is a fan base for that kit, and God love them for doing it. They're doing the Lord's work.
Wow. Well, I've had the pleasure of experiencing Lou's models in person and seeing the museum that you've got there, Lou. It's absolutely amazing. I've got to ask, what do you think at the moment, from all your time of building models, what's the most intricate or difficult model you've done?
Well, the one that needed the most different skill sets. Oh boy. Either the big Enterprise, because that I had to learn how to mix automobile paint and use big sprayers. And, there was also a wood component in that. I had to make a wooden jig, to build the thing, plus the lighting, plus the, the body work and the working with fiberglass and all that kind of stuff. That's on one end, and on the other end, you know the answer, Wayne.
Yeah.
It's that time
Wow.
machine.
God, tell me about it.
Okay.
We did learn a lot of new things. I mean, I was learning new things all the time then. I've never done an Arduino program like that before. I've never done the resin fill that we did by tracing wires through resin. I've never done that before. It's
It turned out great though in the end.
3D printing,
Yeah.
and you have to learn
Yeah.
the 3D printing aspect of it. I like to think of myself as a problem solver, and if I can find, I won't say I'm the laziest person I know, but I'm darn close. I like to work smart and not hard. So
Yeah.
if I could find a quick solution to something, I'll spend an hour and a half to fix a 5-minute problem.
yeah.
Because if I have that 5-minute problem, I know a bunch of other people have had that 5-minute problem,
Absolutely.
and that's how the whole masking thing
Yeah.
came apart. Is me trying to find a solution to something that I know is going to be a sticking point for a lot of other people.
Now, where do you stand with, I guess, the whole sort of part work community and how that, I guess, connects with standard plastic kits? I've had conversations with people who are from very, very different backgrounds. They have no experience, no background in model making at all, but they will build a part work kit. And likewise, people that build part works, either they gravitate towards plastic kits eventually, or they don't. For some, it seems to be a brick wall in between the two, and for others, there's kind of osmosis, I guess, between the two. Kind of where do you kind of stand with that? Do you find that the part work kits themselves, it's just a different kind of building because we're all makers? It just gives you obviously a very high quality finished model when it's complete, but it just doesn't involve the I guess the amount of work involved for a plastic kit. And I guess that's the attraction for non-model makers, I guess we call them.
Well, I'm a babe in the woods when it comes to part works. I have experience of exactly two.
Wow.
And well, no, three, because here's my problem with, it's not a problem. Here's my issue with part works. I have no patience. So the discipline of waiting 6 weeks, 4 weeks for your next set of parts.
Yep.
That to me that's no bueno. That is, if I only did that, I would go mad. It is the fact that that's an add-on to what I'm also doing with regular models that makes it bearable. Now I will say that I don't know the entire history of part work models, but it seems to me up until 2-3 years ago, it was ships, planes, automobiles. It was more of your typical IPMS subject matter. When they start getting into Batmobiles and Ecto-1s and Robocops and Transformers and things like that, that automatically opens up the whole idea to a whole new audience of people who may not have wanted to build a Shelby Cobra. As beautiful a car as that is, they may not have had any interest in doing that. Now, what I like about part work builds, what I really respect about it is it's a limited tool set. You don't have to have an airbrush. You don't have to have a 3D printer. You don't have to have, respirators and ventilators and everything else that you need. You don't have to, a screwdriver, an Allen key, you're golden. You're pretty much there. And, a couple AAA batteries. Now, I'll tell you the one bad experience I had, and that was building the R2. Was because of that arcane battery system that they used. All the world over, you can get 9-volt batteries. You can get AA batteries. I don't know why they picked this thing that you have to, sacrifice. You have to sacrifice a chicken at an altar to get it to work. But other than that, I really liked the process of it. But I'll tell you, what happened with that was that I had found a gentleman on one of the I think it was on RPF. He had the entire set, and I bought all of his parts from him at once.
Yeah.
So I was able to sit down and do. I did like 10 stages a night for 10 days, and I finished. Ran through it, and it was done. And I had the best time putting that thing together until it tried to make it work. If I was waiting 6 weeks for each, 4 weeks for each part, I'd have had a lot different opinion of it.
So how is your setup at the moment then, Lou? Because the way I figure it, that you treat your model building kind of like a job, because you tend to have the weekends off. Do you give yourself certain hours that you work through during the day? Because I think you do 5 days, don't you, of model building?
I don't. I treat it like a job. Yeah, I'm usually up and I start around 9 in the morning. I get up, get my coffee, listen to the radio. I start around 9 unless I've had some itch in the middle of the night that I've got. Oh, I figured out how to do this, and then I'll start earlier, and then I generally work till about 4, and unless I'm in a groove, and then I'll go on into the evening. But then I'm filming as I go for the week's video, and that is my sanity, because once I retired, I needed to put myself on a routine so that I didn't, turn into one of these guys on the couch with a remote and that's all you do all day. So I put myself on a routine. I don't do it as a job, as in I am paid to make videos like Wayne is, or I don't spot my site is not monetized, so I don't garner anything from that other than sharing what I'm doing with other people. Now, it is ironic that most of my builds don't involve my painting templates. Some of them do, but most of them don't. But if I'm doing something that uses a painting template, then yes, I profit from that because that helps the templates to sell. But other than that, that's not the purpose of the
And
video.
for all those listening, Lou Dalmaso is the face behind the Aztek dummy masks. I've got to ask regarding those masks, Lou, do you have to actually build the model and then create the masks as you're building, or do you complete the model and then make the masks afterwards?
I have to. Well, it depends on how the model goes together. But yes, I have to, particularly because when I am doing my instructions, I take pictures of the model I am building and painting as I am building it, so that I can put those in the instructions for it. But yeah, unlike I have a what do you say it? A brotherly jab relationship type with Paul over at Paragraphics, because Paul makes photo etch, but he will make the photo etch, put it on the unpainted part, and say, "Oh, I'm done." It's like, well, yeah, okay, but I also have to paint it on top of that, Or people who design lighting, Ralph will design lighting, and he puts it in an unpainted kit. It's like, well, yeah, it's easy to light your kit if you're not painting it and building it. You have to actually glue it into the part and see how it relates to the other part.
I mean, Lou, that is a skill in itself. I mean, like today I was doing the cap for Vincent from the Black Hole that I've been doing, and I had to mask that off myself. I still get paint under them. I don't know what I'm doing wrong, but that's a big piece. You're doing intricate little tiny windows and stuff like that. I just cannot fathom the skill and artistry that must go into actually be able to create that.
Well, it's that thing. You do something 10,000 times.
Practice.
The first 5,000, go by in a blur. But you do something 10,000 times, you become an expert at it.
Well, of course, that's the thing about the hobby, isn't it? It is that no one's born knowing how to hold an airbrush, for instance. It's that thing about it is absolutely practice. When we all look at maybe some guys in say Europe, some of these elite figure painters, and we kind of aspire to their kind of level of skill. I certainly do, and the diorama builders, some of the guys out of Spain are amazing, and Japan and Germany. But I think for the hobby, it's don't look at that as don't get depressed about that. Because you will improve the more you do this, and the more every single kit you will get better. And I absolutely, I mean, I only been back in the hobby for under 2 years. And the first kit was atrocious, but the last kit was okay. I thought,
Yeah.
and I thought, yeah, I learned a lot about masking and all the rest of it over time. I've never held an airbrush since I was 12. Then it was an old Badger with a can of compressed air. That's what that was. That was an airbrush then in the 70s. So all this new stuff that I'm getting my sort of head around. I mean, do you find that as well, Lou? That the hobby itself, the amount of tools, the amount of I guess help that's out there now with paint formulas, etc. Does that make your head explode, or does that make you kind of really want to try this stuff because it's solving problems which we may have had a few years ago or even decades ago?
I think that there are some times you can get so overwhelmed by the choices of what you can
That's
do
exactly what I felt.
that you end up paralyzed.
Where do you start?
And I do everything I do with like 3 brushes, 1 airbrush, and 1 bottle of paint. And it's like my brain can't handle but so many different techniques. But it reminded me of what I wanted to say when you started talking about my worst class when I went to art school. My worst class was airbrush.
Right.
I could not stand the idea of mix, mask, mix, one little spray, and then you take all the masking off, and then you mix up and then you clean the brush out. It's like all of that for 1
I'm still doing that.
spray. Now what do I?
That's my life.
And then if that instructor could see me now, and that's my life.
that is my life.
Yeah.
Yeah, because everyone does that. I mean, I am in awe of people that still do brush painting, and it's as good as airbrush. How they do that, I have no idea. I have no clue how they get that kind of finish without an airbrush.
To me, it all comes down what's the best, quickest, least fussy way to accomplish your goal.
Yeah.
Sometimes it's with an airbrush, sometimes it's with a hand brush. And just because you have the 3D printer or the fancy airbrush, that doesn't mean it's the best solution.
Well, of course, I think that's right. I mean, the kind of kits you put together as well. Of course, you often put electrics in these things, so that's problem solving as well, which I think is very interesting. But I think it seems to me to be a quintessentially American thing. American modelers. I'm sure when you see a kit, instantly you're thinking, how can I like the kit? What would that look like? But in this country, the UK, not so much. I mean, I go to my local IPMS group, and I think the first kit I bought in with some lights in it made their head explode. How did you do that? No one does this. And I thought everyone did that, but I think I was kind of conditioned by watching YouTube videos by American modelers. And I thought everyone did that, and actually, it seems to be a quintessentially American thing.
I didn't notice that myself, Dave, until I went to Wonderfest this year, and Lou was actually helping run an Iwata course where he was doing masks, and the guy sitting next to me already had a lighting kit for them around, and I'm like, what? And he was putting it in straight away. I'm like, okay, but
Well, to me, it's the subject. If you're going to build a Falcon and not light the back of it, what are you doing? I mean, the Falcon is all about that big light at the back. And it's, you could skimp on the paint, you could skimp on the construction, you could do all that kind of, but if you don't put a light in the back of that thing, hang it up.
Well, yeah, I think that's right. I mean, my group often ask me when I bring a kit in that has no light, oh, where's the lights? Well, I don't light everything. Yeah. If it's not appropriate or I don't feel it's going to add anything to the kit, then I won't do it. I won't do that. Yeah. It has to fit the kit. It has to bring something to the model.
Well, now the thing is everybody's putting sound in their kit.
Yes. Yeah.
And it has to have sound and it has to have, and that's something the part work people were good at. They put the light, they put the engine sound in, or they put the horn sound in. The RoboCop has the voice clips in it. Optimus Prime is supposed to have voice clips in it. I mean, that's what makes it
fun. Then you've got the Doomsday Machine that you did this year, with the sounds.
Well, that's the thing. That's what you were saying, David, about appropriateness. To me, the Doomsday Machine, if you don't do that music,
Yeah.
what are you doing? You got, I mean, that's
Yeah.
that's like doing that's like doing the shark from Jaws and not doing the music. I mean,
Absolutely, yeah. Because I'm going to build the Ghostbusters car, but I'll put lights in it. But without the music, without the theme music, that's going to look very, very odd for me. So it has to have sound.
Well, see,
It has to.
Here's your definition, or here's your difference. Then, the Ecto One without lights is dead.
Yeah.
But if you were going to build Christine, you've got to have this. You've got to have the radio playing. You've got to have the songs coming out of the, because that's the character.
Although I didn't spend a lot of time explaining what that is. So why has it got lights, etc.
Yeah,
which is strange. I also wanted to ask you as well, Lou. I mean, I've seen your workshop because Wayne obviously did a walk around when you were there, Wayne. How do you actually organise that? I believe it's one space in your home. But of course, a lot of us, I'm lucky. I've also got a purpose-built office or a sort of shed out the back. That's where I do mine. But a lot of people, when I was a kid, it was a tea tray and a shoebox for my tools, and that was it. So I've kind of got big boys toys with what I'm doing at the moment. But for a lot of people, it's how do you build a useful space, really? I mean, I'm assuming the space that you have now isn't the one you started out with. I'm assuming that's evolved over time.
Well, I've managed to keep it all under one roof.
It's a big roof, though. Yeah, let's say that.
Yeah, there are, at any given time, there could be parts of models, sub-assemblies strewn about the entire strewn about its cave, strewn about the entire house. The bones of full 50 men.
So what's your most comfortable thing that you like building, Lou? Like time periods or genres or stuff like that? Where do you find your comfort?
I like building my Trek models. I like building my Star Trek models. I like building just that. I like my Star Wars, don't get me wrong. I like the clean lines and the smooth rounded curves of a nice, a nicely designed nacelle, as opposed to I'll tell you, I'm not really big on the alien aesthetic.
Okay.
Where it's just plating for plating's sake. I would much rather do something that harkens back to 2001 or Star Trek or the 60s mid-century modern design.
I do like.
Yeah, because I think they kind of came out of the. I guess they were looking at what would spaceships look like, and I guess they looked at submarines, and they were sleek and that kind of thing, and that's where the aesthetic for 2001 I think came from. It was, let's put sort of things like submarines in space.
That and the Art Deco robot design of Metropolis or Forbidden Planet or Lost in Space. There's a great movie, Sky Captain and the World of Tomorrow, that is nothing but Art Deco robots and ray guns. It's a beautiful aesthetic.
That's what missed people by that film. I've got that film. I had to rewatch it again last year, but it's a great film. But good film.
Well, there's that. I think these days, I guess, model companies, that's what they do. They trawl, the genre for what could we do next? What could the actual model making community want? But of course, often they will not look at obscure stuff. So I suppose for you, Lou, what kind of kit would you have loved to have built, but it just doesn't exist?
I would love to build the Orville. It doesn't exist.
Yeah.
I would love to build a Firefly. Kit doesn't exist.
Crazy.
And a lot of it's licensing. It's problems that you and I have no control over. Maybe someday that'll get straightened out. But
I think that's probably one of the big impetus, or one of the big reasons why there's such a big influx now of the garage kit scene, because there's things you just cannot get hold of, which are amazing models that you see at some of these shows and stuff. And it's like it's scarce. It ticks all the boxes.
Well, and with the proliferation of 3D machines, that's only going to get more and more and more. I mean, I don't try to understand the business end of that kind of stuff. Maybe maybe it doesn't make financial sense for a model company to invest in a model of something that's from a failed TV show, but
well,
you can't call Firefly a failed TV show.
So, yeah.
Yeah. Well, I wasn't saying that particularly. I mean, you name your I don't want to tell that story because I don't have the right to, and if I tell it wrong, I'll get in trouble.
You heard it here first, guys.
But if you're going to spend time and money in research and development on a model kit, make sure your subject doesn't get blown up in the first season. That's all I'm saying. That's all I'm going to say.
Crazy Christ.
Could be. I wonder what that was.
Yeah. You did not hear it from me.
No, and I was in exactly the same frame of mind. I think a lot of people had finished the kit just before they watched that episode. I went, oh, fantastic! So it doesn't exist anymore. Wonderful. But it's
here's my version. It's a handful of sand. Here's my version of that.
Well, you haven't stopped Bandai and continue to put out different versions of the kit. I think there was a new one this year. The smaller one, 144. So it's still being sold. People still want to build it. But it's one of those.
Yeah.
It's if there's something that you would like to try and build, then you're right. I mean, the advent of 3D printing, you probably find somebody out there has built the STL file somewhere, probably. You either get that printed yourself. I mean, I've done that. I've downloaded the STL file and then set that off to a bureau and got the thing printed for me until I can invest in my own machine. So there's always that route if you want to build something fairly obscure and someone's actually done the work.
Yeah. Well, and to make sure that person's been compensated.
Yeah, absolutely. Too. Yeah, I mean, it is a route if you do see something that you want to actually build. I think these days it's more about how you can modify things, particularly the diorama builders. Those guys are using 3D printing a lot for modifications and for building stuff that they simply can't buy, or what they can buy either doesn't fit or it's too expensive. You can get that stuff built yourself. One thing I wanted to ask you as well. I mean, you guys obviously collaborate on several models. Is that something you've always done, Lou? Or is that something that's come along? Because model making is essentially a pretty do-it-yourself hobby, isn't it?
That's very new for me. I am very much of the opinion that I love to sit around and chew the idea over with Wayne or with other people about, okay, what does this model need to do? We could do this. But after I get started, it's like, don't touch my model. Get away from me. Yeah. It's like,
back away from my model.
I think you should. Yeah. Somebody says, well, I think you should paint that blue. Well, I think you should shut up and mind your own business. It's like, I have a heart. I mean, that's what I don't know if that's why I'm drawn to doing the models the way I'm doing. It's like, because it is a solitary thing. Yeah. I can't imagine the masters painters in the Renaissance going, oh, what do you think about this wonderful sculpture? Or what? Oh, I think if you chip like this, no, get away from me.
It is good. That was apparent when we did the time machine challenge as well, because we knew what we wanted to do. We knew how we had to do it, but we all did our own things when it comes to actually making the thing spin. And it was interesting to see how you tackle your own things.
It's different routes to the same destination, but I don't want to hand off the stuff. There are people I know that, let's do a buddy build. Well, what's a buddy build? That's where I start a model and I hand it off to somebody else, and then they work on it for a little bit, and then they hand it off to somebody else. It's like, that sounds stupid.
Yeah.
Where's my model?
It's never gonna work. Never,
No.
never.
Do you
Well,
What if they screw it up? You know?
do you realise that it was only last year, because the
Wow.
years seem to be going by. Last year was my first ever Wanderfest, and then obviously this year was my second one. And to me, I mean, this year seems to have grown since the year before, big time, that we actually noticed. The video that I put on my channel has now had something like 170,000 views, which is easily the highest amount of views on my channel, big time, of any video. Now, we keep saying that we need to see a Wanderfest in the UK because we do have that sort of following here. And the only way we can get to see it is if we go over to America. But obviously, Lou, you've been experiencing it for years. So you knew about this. You knew about the competition and how people can show off their models and stuff like that. And you've been entering your own models for a long time as well. Is that right? So
Yes.
do you make conscious decisions when you're building models that this is going to be a competition entry, or is it something that you built a model and you thought this will be good in a competition?
It's kind of, I assume I'm going to take everything, and then a month before I go, oh no, this isn't good enough. This isn't good enough. This isn't good enough. And then I whittle it down to about 10, and then after that I was like, no. Wayne, you know this. I had kits in the hotel room last year that I didn't bring down to the table because I kind of saw where
everyone else was.
When you see the level of everybody else, it's like, okay, maybe not this one. And I also, it's maybe ego. I try to bring something that nobody else is going to bring. I could almost guarantee you that nobody else was going to bring a Doomsday Machine.
And even that studio set of the Galileo shuttle. Yeah.
Now that was something I said, oh, this is going to Wonderfest. I'm going to be happy with this. But no, I don't try to build with the idea of entering it in a competition in mind. But I don't want to be the sixth guy there with a Frankenstein model.
Yeah, of course.
Or the year that the first year that the 22-inch Eagle, 1999 Eagle came out, Round 2 brought out this beautiful kit, still one of the best kits they've ever done, the 22-inch basic Eagle. And I'm going, okay, I bet you there's going to be 20 of these things at the competition. But do I still want to bring it? It's like, well, yeah, I'm happy. I'm proud of the job I did. And I brought it. And there was maybe 2 or 3 others. But sometimes you can just psych yourself out thinking, oh, everybody's going to bring that. And it turns out nobody does. Or you can say, I bet you no one's going to bring this, and 20 people do. It's like, you can be your own worst enemy sometimes. So I just try to say, okay, is this something I'm proud of? Is this something somebody else might not have seen elsewhere? Is this, special enough? And for me, it's like, oh, I'm happy with how I solved this problem on that kit.
Yeah.
Or I'm proud of the thing I added to this kit. And that's what determines whether or not
I think that's right, because I think if you chase the awards, if you chase the trophies, you could be a basket case very, very quickly. Because if you don't win or you don't get placed year after year after year, all you're going to be doing then is building models to try and win that award or to try and get placed or whatever it is. And that's not really what the hobby's about, it seems to me. You would very, very quickly
I don't think so.
get very, very depressed, because if you're not winning for whatever the reasons are, and it might not be because the model isn't very good, because I'm assuming, just like IPMS in the UK for Scan Model World, it's a very subjective thing. The judges on the day make a decision, and it may not go your way for years. And that could really do something rather nasty with your mental health if you're going to try and pursue that. So I think if you just build the stuff for yourself, and if a competition happens to tick round, put it in, and you might actually win something or get placed. But I don't think I could recommend.
I like it when
building for competitions just themselves. That's not what the hobby's about.
Yeah, I like it when somebody says, "Oh, I saw that X thing that you built. I liked how that turned." To me, that's good. That's because I don't know what weird thing it is about it, but models always look better in person than they do with photographs.
Yes. Yeah. Yeah, the detail just doesn't go.
David, to tell you the truth, the thing about Wonderfest is lately, the last few years, it's been getting your model down in time so you can get to the
Yeah.
power. It's like there's a limited number of
Jeez.
power jacks and all
Really?
that,
Wow.
and
Yeah.
power strips. And it's like, if you have a kit, you had better, it has lighting, you had better get down there early, or else they're going to snap up all of
Well,
the
I'll get round that.
power
All of
leads.
mine
And
are independent battery powered USBs. So I
Mhm.
just leave the USB on the table, and then I'll just come back
Mhm.
probably every 6 hours and change the batteries. So it's just
That's the only way to do it.
yeah, just to keep it going.
Wonderfest started as a response to IPMS because
Yeah,
because the people who build the fantasy
yeah,
kits were not
yeah,
being
yeah.
represented at IPMS.
It's better
So
now than it was. Absolutely.
maybe
Yeah,
a natural,
yeah.
yeah, and maybe that'll be a natural outgrowth of Telford, is that it splits off into a Telford IPMS and a Telford fantasy.
I'd love to see
Possibly,
that.
yes. We're thinking about that a lot. I think when I came back from the garage show, that sort of sparked my interest. Again, it was specialised, quite a small event, but again, it's all fantasy and science fiction horror. But you can kind of see that on a larger scale because there's a few dotted around, and there's no reason why they can all come together into one place. Really. So it's an interesting concept to do some kind of Wonderfest UK. Really, it is. It's something we're I think we're going to start seriously thinking about as a possible thing for Way and I, if we can actually get that off the ground, if it's possible. But it's kind of a perfect storm. I think sci-fi fantasy is big enough now. If stuff across TV and film, it's still growing. So I think the kit manufacturers are paying attention to it as well. Part workers, of course, they are paying very much attention to that. Lots and lots of genre stuff. So I think there's plenty of interest out there. It's just if we can get it all together in one place and get enough people to come along.
Okay, I've got a question for you, David. Then, what would you think of somebody who entered a part work in a show?
That'll be fine for me. I do not distinguish between part works and plastic kits. I know people that poo-poo part works. They say, "Oh, that's not model making. Oh, that's it's just not. That's not model making at all. It isn't." I have absolutely no problem with that at all.
We did see some at
whatsoever.
Wonderfest. There was an R2 there last year, I think, and the Falcon was there this year.
But they were heavily modified.
I think the R2 was weathered.
Well, that's fine as well. If you whatever you want to do, if you want to, again, it's exactly what you were saying earlier, Luke. If you do want to bring a part work to a show like that, you might find there's going to be 15 R2s. But that's just the way it's going to be, because 15 people probably built that and they want to bring it. And if they do, then the judges are going to have a very hard decision, which is the best R2. But again, that's a subjective thing on the day, really. That's what it is. But I think part works, plastic kits, it's all making. You're all makers. You're all building this stuff. So I have absolutely no problem with mixing those two together, which is I do all the time. I've just finished a plastic kit. I'm going to go and finish my DeLorean next, so it's done, and then I'll go back to a plastic kit next. That's how I tend to to do these kind of things, or have a couple of things on the go at a time. Not 3 or 4 like you maybe, but 1 or 2 is enough in my head. That's enough for me. But yeah, things like that. I think we're edging towards a point where we can do a Wonderfest in the UK. I think that's absolutely coming. Well, we're getting very close to the end here, Lou. I guess what we'd like to ask you is what are you working on at the moment? What's next for you? What's on the bench?
What's on the bench is that huge TIE Fighter kit right now.
All right.
That has sparked a lot of discussion, shall we say, on the site as far as how accurate it is or isn't, and is the pilot too small or is the pilot the right size? And a lot of times I realize, you can make a kit that is completely accurate to the filming model, and people still won't believe you that this is what the film. Perhaps the filming model had a defect in it that you weren't aware of.
That's true. Yes, absolutely.
But I say, and I'll tell everybody, we are in a golden age right now of kits. you are getting quality kits from major manufacturers of subjects you maybe wouldn't thought would ever see the light of day.
True.
And it's and more are announced every week. And I remember the dark days when you go scan the shelves at the toy store
Yep.
when they still carried models that you didn't have to go to a hobby shop to find, but you go to the toy store and car models out the wazoo. But try to find an Enterprise or try to find a robot or something interesting for you, and it just wasn't there. And now it's everything at your fingertips.
Absolutely.
Whether it's a garage kit or somebody's 3D print or whatever. It's like there's no excuse not to be out there building something.
Well, I think that's a brilliant time to end on that note, Lou. I think it's
I stole Phil's line for the last
Build something.
Build something. Yeah, get out there and build something. Well, again, thanks for joining us this time, Lou. I think that's been a fascinating conversation. I'm sure we'll touch base again at some point in the future. Well, before moving on, I'd like to talk to you all about a company that we've been working with, Agora Models, the home of big scale modelling. Agora Models has transformed the world of scale modelling since they launched, largely due to the company promise. The Agora promise is designed to re-establish trust that once a new model has been launched, it will not stop production until every part of the kit has been produced. The Agora Advantage Club rewards customers, giving members early access to new models, but importantly, ensures the customer care experience is world class. Whether you want to build a museum quality car, iconic vehicle, or love sci-fi and fantasy, there is a model in the Agora range ready for you. With exciting new models coming this year, including the first of the James Bond collection, if you have always wanted to build a model, Agora Models invites you to join a massive community of fellow scale modelers. Visit agoramodels.com to discover their ever-changing range of museum quality models. We've come to the end of this episode, sadly. I'd like to thank Lou for being our special guest and for giving us all the insights into his model making. Until next time, it's goodbye from me and it's goodbye from Wayne.
Take care, everyone. See you later. The Scale Model World Podcast.